On the 16th of March, Stephen was telling us that he went onto an online gambling website. He regularly uses this website. And he played a game and won £200, which he withdrew and put in his bank. He left £20 in the account and went on to play another game. Well, he couldn't believe what happened next.
Came up, I won £47,000. I carried on playing, and then I won, it came up to I won £183,000, and it finished off at £330,906.96p. It's very life-changing, so I rent the place, and I thought I could buy a place, look after my kids. I withdrew the money, done a bank transfers. It was all processing. Later on in the afternoon, I noticed they declined all the payments. I came off it, and at 8 o'clock at night, it went back onto my account on the online gaming place. They suspended my account due to investigation. I received an email on Wednesday. It was 8 o'clock. It was 8 o'clock at night. They put £330,000 back into my account. I came off it because I was still working, and then I went to log in the next day, and I couldn't log in, and I got hold of customer services, and they said they've got technical problems. And I received an email Wednesday saying there was a malfunction, a glitch, and they, due to their terms and conditions, they can void payment. And they're saying that I owe them the £200 that I drew out half hour before.
Well, as you can imagine, Stephen felt absolutely crushed. He came to my programme in the hope that we could help him get that money back. We went off to have a word with the gambling company. We'll find out what they had to say in just a second, but Stephen's back on the JVS Show. Hello, Stephen.
Hi, Jonathan.
Good morning to you. Now, the company concerned is William Hill, and it's William Hill that we've been off to speak to. Liz, just remind us of their response that they gave us.
They came back to us to say, during a routine review of platform activity, we identified an issue affecting the Jackpot Drop game, which temporarily resulted in incorrect sums being credited to players' balances and withdrawals being processed incorrectly. Whilst we quickly identified and resolved this issue, for a short period of time, funds were erroneously credited to some customer accounts that were not correctly generated through valid or properly functioning gameplay. We have contacted relevant customers to clarify the issue and are in the process of retrieving the funds in line with our standard terms and conditions. We have been grateful for our customers' understanding on this matter and apologise for the inconvenience caused.
Well, you don't feel like being particularly understanding at all, do you, Stephen? In fact, you're pretty annoyed about this because in your mind, you'd already got that £330,000 earmarked for various different things. I gather you're a postman.
Yes.
I gather you are renting your own place, so you were thinking, gosh, gives me the opportunity to actually buy my own place for once. You were going to buy yourself a car as well because you've got an old car. So to suddenly be told you've won £330,000 and then have the whole lot pulled from under you is absolutely crushing. And to make matters worse, the fact that they then also want you to pay back the £200 that you won and withdrew right at the very beginning of this, it just rubs salt in the wound. Yeah. Well, I know that when we spoke last, you were telling us that you'd done a bit of research and you'd found that there were other cases where people had had similar situations with gambling companies and had been successful in fighting those companies. So I said to you last time we were having the conversation, I know just the man to speak to. He will be able to work out whether or not you have a good chance of being successful if you were to pursue William Hill legally. His name is Nick Freeman. He's the lawyer known as Mr. Loophole. And I'm very pleased to say Nick joins us now. Good morning to you, Nick.
Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning. So tell us, what's your view on Stephen's chances of success? Because he's very, very disappointed.
Well, I'm not in the least bit surprised. So basically, from a legal standpoint, under the Gambling Act, going back to 2005, if you place a bet and you win, that is enforceable and that's yours and they have to honour that. That's the basic rule. But law's never simple. And what all these gambling companies do is they have sort of the glitch clause, the get out of jail card. And that's to cover situations where there is a genuine glitch, a genuine technical error. So it really just depends on whether or not that glitch is genuine or not. And my instincts are that there's a process that Stephen needs to go through. First of all, these clauses in law, according to consumer legislation, have to be transparent and they have to be fair. So my advice for Stephen would first of all to make a formal complaint to William Hill, which they're then obligated to investigate. And what you particularly want to complain about is not just what's happened, but you want to know the nature of the glitch. You want a full computer trail outlining what that glitch is. And you want to know when they were aware of it, because what's very much in your favor is they say there was a glitch, you won £200, you drew out 180, and that was honored. So I don't think they've got any chance at all. And I know this isn't the lion's share of recovering that, but that is very much in your favor. Now, they have to investigate that properly within their own internal rules. If you don't get a satisfactory response, and I imagine you won't, you then go to what's called alternative resolution dispute. And again, the matter is looked at, and you'll hear all the arguments one way and the other, and it may be resolved in your favor and it may not be. I don't know, because I don't know at this stage, and neither do you, whether they're able to illustrate that actually was a genuine glitch and that it's just one of those things that can happen from time to time. If that doesn't bear fruit for you, then the next course of action is, of course, the Gambling Commission, because all these companies are regulated, and they're heavily regulated. And these companies have to act with integrity, they have to be honest, and their provisions have to be very transparent and clear. And it's not one-sided, because the purpose of the Gambling Commission is to protect punters, if I can call you a punter, Stephen, from being dealt with unfairly. It isn't one-way traffic, and what's fascinating about these glitches is they only seem to work when the company is obligated to pay out. And I'm always curious. It's always curious to know how many times do they say, "Oh, sorry, we're going to refund that bet you placed because it was a computer glitch and we couldn't honour it." And my suspicions are that just never happens. As I say, it's one-way traffic. Now, the Gambling Commission can't enforce payment, but what it can do is it can put a great deal of pressure on William Hill, which will not want adverse publicity. It's a huge company, and it will certainly not want adverse comments from the Gambling Commission suggesting that actually they're trying to rob you. Now, the final course is to actually consider legal action, high court action, for the recovery of the £330,000. And I'm not saying on air that William Hill are trying it on here. They're a reputable company. I'm not going to talk about the reputation of gambling companies generally. Each case has to be dealt with on its own merits. But let's just suppose hypothetically that William Hill were actually being slightly disingenuous in the way that they have dealt with this, and they're not able to prove to satisfaction that there was a glitch. My advice would be to report this matter to the police, because in effect, if they are trying it on with you without justification, they're in fact obtaining a pecuniary advantage by deception to the tune of £330,000, which is, in legal terms, that's fraud. That's a very serious offence, and I don't see any reason why at the same time you don't make. Once you started the ball rolling, I would advise you to make a formal complaint to the police so that they can investigate this. They have the technical expertise. It will put pressure on William Hill to cooperate and to provide all the evidence. And it may be that this is completely genuine and you are just an unfortunate victim. And if you are, Stephen, you would think as a gesture of goodwill, they will be saying, "Look, we're so sorry about this. Of course, we're not going to seek to recover the £200, and we're going to give you as a gesture, £1,000 in your account. We're so desperately sorry for the damage caused, because obviously this has caused you mental anguish, etc., etc." as far as High Court action is concerned, I wouldn't be pursuing that because it's expensive until I know absolutely, on the basis of proper legal advice from a lawyer who's sat down and gone through all the technical evidence with an expert, because this computer evidence is very complicated. It's certainly, it's expert evidence, and you need an expert to look at this, and the lawyers would arrange that for you. They would do that, undertake it, and then they would advise you. But if you get to that stage and they say, yes, there's no evidence here of a glitch, and we think that you should pursue this, and I would very much advise you to pursue it. And it might be interesting to know who the other people are, how many people are involved, and it may be that you pursue an action together, because it seems to be the same glitch with the same problem. Is it just a few people? Is it hundreds of people? Is it thousands of people? I don't know. But those are questions that will be asked during any, if you like, conflict resolution, so you can get a better picture of what's exactly happening.
But it fundamentally comes down to whether they can prove the glitch was a genuine glitch. How would they do that, though?
Well, they would need a computer expert to illustrate that. They can't just say there's a glitch and hope to get away with it. And the other thing, Jonathan, even if there is a glitch, their terms have to be very transparent. And I would advise Stephen to ask which particular term they're seeking to rely on. Because if their terms and conditions are vague and sort of just so much geared in favour of them and against the punter, they may well be a stop from resisting the claim. In other words, they may be told, look, this is a completely unfair condition that you put in. It's far too wide. It's completely one-sided. You can't rely on it, and you are legally a stop. You're legally prevented from resisting this claim.
You would presume, though, that a big company like William Hill, who no doubt have access to, very good lawyers, you would imagine that they will have helped them craft their terms and conditions to make sure they're legally watertight.
You would expect that, and I would expect that will be so. For me, what's interesting is the nature of the glitch, how they can prove it, and they need to prove it existed. They can't just simply say, oh, we've had a glitch, for obvious reasons. They need to be completely transparent and prove that there was a glitch, and they need to prove that so that everyone can see, yes. And look, computers sometimes go wrong. The computer sometimes says no. So these things do happen. We've heard about, banks depositing large sums of cash in people's accounts when that money shouldn't be there. So, this can happen, and it may have happened here. So this is a process that Stephen needs to follow to find out whether or not he is genuinely entitled to that money, or in fact it was just an awful experience that's raised his hopes, his life, his anticipation, and then they've been thwarted at the last moment, because it's like someone telling you you've won the lottery and said, oh, sorry, no, I've got the wrong person. It's quite horrific, isn't it?
It is horrific. And as you quite rightly pointed out, I mean, what is also pretty horrific is having then done that to a customer. And I should point out, Stephen, you've been quite a regular customer of William Hill, have you not? You've used their company many times before and played this game many times before.
Yes.
To treat a loyal customer that's already given you business for some time in this way and to get their hopes up, and then to say, well, sorry, it was all a mistake and you haven't won anything. Oh, and by the way, you owe us 200 quid. And as you quite rightly said, Nick, to not make any kind of goodwill gesture is just a slap in the face.
Well, they did give us goodwill gesture of 11%, so I had to pay £178 back.
Oh, I see. That was the goodwill gesture, was it? So they would let you keep 11% of the 200 quid?
Yes, yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the profits are of William Hill. I don't know how much the managing director, the chief executive takes, but I hope he's listening to this, and I hope he's cringing in shame, because this is an appalling way to treat any punter, but particularly more so those who are loyal, who, keep your business, provide you with a living, and you basically treat them like absolute dirt, with no sympathy, no empathy. It's an appalling situation, and it's a situation that they need to deal with from a PR perspective very quickly and very generously.
Nick, as always, thank you so much for your time. There's Nick Freeman, who's the lawyer known to most of us as Mr. Loophole. Well,